Hello. Hello.
Here we go. Confidence conversation with Nanda Grandison. Great to see you today, Nanda. Thank you for
Great
joining me.
Great to be here.
Awesome. So I'll do an intro so that people know who we are talking to today. I'm talking to Nanda Grandison, who is the founder of IMPAC Marketing. Of course, you're not only entrepreneurial for this IMPAC Marketing, but as long as I've known you, you've had entrepreneurial aspirations and entrepreneurial ventures that you have led. And so that sort of what seems to me like an adventurous and confident spirit has always been what I've associated with you. In addition to that, you've also been in the C-suite level of marketing and had previous roles as VP of marketing, not just in multiple industries, and also in some ways serving as leader of leaders in your career. A very impressive career that has spanned over a couple of decades, while you're over here looking like you just started your career, yourself, the vision of youth. Such a pleasure to have you, Nanda. So that's my intro. Of course, I get to call you friend as well. Have had the pleasure of knowing you for a few years, but career has featured very much in our conversations and in our interactions. Anything else that you would like to say by way of introduction?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you. Thank you for saying that. I too call you a friend, and I'll talk about it later, how certainly in times where, I'm dealing with a particular issue, you've certainly been a shoulder and a listening ear. So I appreciate that. I also want to share, obviously I'm Jamaican born and first generation college graduate. You did mention this. I have a 20-year career in marketing, specifically in the B2B space, working with small to mid-size and multinationals. As part of my work in marketing, I make sure that for these companies, I align my strategies with the company's goal to drive growth. And I've recently stepped away from my role as CMO to start my marketing consultancy, which you've mentioned, Impact Marketing, but also to pursue my entrepreneurial ventures, which I'll speak to later on.
Thank you very much. And we're here to talk about confidence, something you and I have talked about off camera as well. And so this is almost like a continuation. How would you define or describe confidence?
Yeah. So, for me, confidence is being intentional about your abilities, whether it's your background, it's the experience that you bring to the table. And it's also what I think is also very important is the stories I tell to myself. And so what I mean by that is I believe that confidence starts in the mind and then reflects in our action. So it's very important to me to ensure that my mindset and the stories I tell myself is aligned with the action that I want to take in order to exude confidence.
Talking about being reflected, thought then reflected in your action is very powerful. Every conversation I've had, we define confidence a little bit differently. Just yesterday, I was talking to a group of professionals, and one of the things that came up was how, as an individual, someone can walk into a room and change the energy in the room. Someone can speak up and change the outcome of a conversation. So it's not so much the circumstance as what you have decided or what you have anticipated as the outcome. You can influence the outcome. So that thought to action is one I'll definitely be keeping in mind. So
Yes,
talking about thought and then action, can you share a time when being confident made a difference in your career?
Yes. So right after college, I started my career at one of the big four accounting firms. And my role at the time was something database analyst or specialist. I was doing a glorified data entry. And so, 3 weeks into my role, my boss asked me to conduct a training. I lived in New Jersey, worked in New Jersey at the time, in New York City for our executive assistants. And the executive assistants were the ones actually using the tool. And in that moment, I was terrified. I thought, I'm not qualified. I don't have the experience. I recommended someone else that she should take for this training, but I didn't see what she saw in me. And it's interesting because, as I look back on my career, I've hired so many people where I saw something in them that they didn't see in themselves, and they've gone on to do great things. So she saw that in me at the time. So I couldn't get out of it. So I decided I have to figure out this tool. I have to learn the ins and outs. I remember staying up late at night, going through the details, really reaching out and doing surveys with the executive assistants to understand what their issues are, because I didn't want to go into that training not knowing what I was up against, and then making sure I connected the dots. So the day I went into New York, I was on cloud nine. I was going to do this training. It was going to be awesome. I walked in the room. There were 50 executive assistants. They were all senior. Here I am, 23. And I literally froze. The feelings I had when my boss asked me to do the training came back. And I had the mindset to take a break. So I remember going into the restroom, breathing and really talking to myself. Nanda, we're here for a purpose. You can do this. You know the content, and you're here to help these folks. And one thing about confidence is sometimes your mind may be telling you no, but you have to take that next step. You have to move. And I remember walking out with my head held high, walking to the front of the room. And I don't remember the first words that came out of my mouth, but once I start talking, I just felt a peace come over me. And I did that training. I got feedback that it was one of the best trainings that they've had. I went on to do hundreds of training for the organization around this tool. A couple years later, I was promoted to manager. And as the leader of the customer relationship management tool, I was tasked with marshaling the team to upgrade into a new tool that I launched worldwide. So, the moral of just sharing this with you is, I went into the organization just graduating from college, not really understanding what it meant to be confident. My confidence was tested, but ultimately my mindset that got me to a place where I excelled. So just wanted to share that story because even to today, I look back, I think about that story when I'm in situations where I feel like my confidence is tested, and I draw back on, okay, Nanda, where are you mentally? What's going on? And tap into to get through that, whatever it is I'm going through.
Nanda, we could take that story and have a whole conversation. Like if we dissect that, it's so multifaceted. You touched on so many things in there, from someone seeing something in you and being receptive to the opportunity, being able to tap into your experience, your knowledge, your abilities, your skills. So you knew I can learn this stuff going in, being prepared, and yet how you can be prepared and still find yourself faltering, and how you have to tap into the logic. It's like you bypass the feelings and you tap back into the logic so that you can do what you came here to do.
Absolutely. And you got to move. You cannot, it's the fight or flight, right? You have to
Yeah.
decide, I'm going to fight and I'm going to make that move. And it all came together.
Oh my gosh. And to hear that you reference that even recently is very powerful, because every aspect of your experience plays a role and you can tap into it. The group of people I was speaking to yesterday, when we were talking about what confidence means, someone used a word so succinctly to describe this element. The word that she used was wisdom. And I asked her to elaborate, and she said, you know that it will be fine. You can tap into your experience, basically. You know, you've gone through it before, you've gone through challenging times before. Now, your confidence is the wisdom to know I have the experience, I can tap into that, and I can get past this again. And that's part of what you've touched on the end here. That is incredible. And I suppose this kind of ties in neatly to what you do when you need a confidence boost.
You know, you mentioned it. I reflect on my accomplishments. You know, we have the experience, we've been there before. And I reflect on what I've done. You know, what's been important for me as I've grown in my career and really into myself is knowing, you know, what makes me feel calm, what gives me that sense of accomplishment. So I exercise, I meditate, I pray. I also, you know, will talk to, you know, whether it's a mentor or colleague, I'll talk to you. I've done that in instances, but you know, though the things that I've mentioned, it really helps us get back to a place where we're like, okay, you
Yes,
know, I am where I need to be. And last but not least, I do think it's important for us to be in perspective. So if I need a boost, what's going on? You know, what's really happening, Nanda, where you're feeling like you need that confidence boost? And, you know, sometimes we have to sit with that question
yes.
deeper. We have to understand what's really going on. And sometimes what's going on is outside of us. And so once we figure that out, next time we know how to deal with that issue.
That's a very good point. Is this pausing to assess and really take stock of what's happening, especially when you feel that there's a change or a difference. You know, sometimes we're so caught up in the daily grind that pausing feels like a luxury, but it's necessary to be able to understand what's going on. And talking about things being outside of you, a lot of times in talking about confidence, we'll reference the circumstances surrounding a specific incident or the environment. It could be that there's something taking place at work. And part of the conversations that I've been having now have shifted to two-pronged, you know, where yes, we're focusing on rebuilding confidence in women in my conversations and in the group sessions, but there's also the recognition that it's not all imposter syndrome. You know, people have come into circumstances, women in particular. Women are not a monolith. We're all, you know, different, but it's a fairly common experience. They are knowledgeable, they are confident, and they come in, you know, just raring to go. And then over time, there's something, things just start to take a toll on their confidence or their sense of certainty in the workplace. So they came in feeling confident, and now their confidence is shaken. So part of the conversations are, yes, boosting confidence in women, but also recognizing that the workplace has a role in that. Now, in the last, you know, decade or so of your career, you have held leadership positions, you know, vice president and C-suite and marketing. From that vantage point, what would you say is something or are things that organizations can do to help promote women, promote in the sense of advancing in career, but also making sure that women are welcome and able to be successful, are able to be valued, recognized for the contributions that they're bringing in a meaningful way? What can organizations do?
That is a great question. And, you know, I've been in that position where I also have to think about how do I help my peers and how do I make sure the people that report into me and I lead have the opportunity, especially women and you know, women of color to replace me or take over the role that I'm in. And I think there's a few things that we can do. I think one, organizations have to recognize that, there's men and women and we all lead differently. So really building that connection. You know, I've been in organizations where, you know, the my male counterpart has a great relationship with the CEO because they're talking about sports and golf and basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch those things. So it's being able to, for that leader or the organization themselves, to be intentional about connecting with that individual or that C-suite or that VP or even that director, and
Mm-hmm.
getting to know them. Obviously, it's also on the director to put themselves out there to build that connection with leaders so that they can know who they are, what they've done, and know them outside of the organization. I also know that having a relationship with someone is so important. I have found that it is one of the biggest reasons why we continue to get promoted, why we continue to take on projects, why we get exposure. I myself, I moved to San Diego because of the relationship that I built with my then boss in New York. And we're still friends to today, but that relationship has allowed me to move from the East Coast to the West, allowed me to take on a VP position, and then move me into the C-suite. So the relationships that we build in the organization is really important. But for women, I think it's a little harder because we don't necessarily connect on the same level. So it's important to be intentional and for organizations to understand that. So that's one. The other that I found very helpful, I come from the coaching space for executives. And one of the things that we did at one of the companies that I worked for is, as a leadership team of VPs and senior directors, we all got together. We all met once a month to talk about the opportunities that we saw in our respective division, our respective departments, to share, some challenges that we are dealing with, and then ultimately help each other solve those issues. And I believe that if organizations can put together or make it possible for their leaders, their directors, their managers to come together in a group setting and learn from each other, that is also a way that I believe that they can help women advance, because it's so important to build a relationship, not just with the people above you or manage up, but with the folks and the peers that you work with as well. So those are certainly some examples. And one that I've taken from role to role is, as women, we have to know when it's time to move on, when it's time to move to that next level, when it's time to take on that director role, when it's time to take on that VP role, or even, and this is not popular, when it's time to leave the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we set those goals for ourselves and we know where we want to be when, it is then easier, and it really builds our confidence when we're able to achieve those personal goals.
Yeah, yeah. And that really does seem to be what's the more common resolution that a lot of women in leadership reach, is to move on. The recent McKinsey and Lean In report on women in the workplace cited that 2 out of 3 female directors would leave the organization. And it's probably to solve such an issue as that. So it still ends up falling largely on the individual if organizations, which of course are comprised of people, are not intentional to make the workplace such that these incredible candidates that they have brought on board are able to be successful, are able to thrive, that they will go elsewhere in search of that, personal accomplishment, in search of, furthering their career and being successful. And so there's that potential for loss on part of the organization if they do not do what you described. I'm sure that's becoming more common, but it has not always been the case. You mentioned, I was writing as you were talking because I wanted to make sure that I captured that, about, first of all, recognizing that we all lead differently. And that's not just in terms of gender, but down to the individual level. People have such different experiences and outlooks that that's part of the beauty of it. We lead differently. And then talking about being intentional, getting to know people, really getting to know people, and that relationships matter. But this group approach of addressing what's the issue, taking specific action. Otherwise, those women who are bringing so much to the organization will see exiting the organization as the best option that they have. They'll take that skill, ability, and just go elsewhere.
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen and have met so many people in my career going back to knowing when it's time to move to that next level,
Mm.
who have stayed in a role and have lost all confidence
Mhm.
because they're getting overlooked for promotions, they're getting overlooked for new projects, and it eats away at their
It
confidence.
takes it, yes.
Absolutely. So we have to have these goals set for ourselves and know when it's time to take on that new role or move into that new department or try this new opportunity. We have to be able to do that.
And along the line of relationships, when I think in terms of people interacting in the workplace, a lot of times we associate those comfortable relationships with people who are more extroverted, but that's not necessarily the case. And I say it mainly because when people think of relationships and what it takes to move on, it's important to keep in mind that it's not about being social. It's not about how social you are in the workplace, but truly forming relationships. And so different people, much the same way we lead differently, different people will form relationships in different ways. It's not about necessarily being the, fun, loud one in the room, but truly connecting with someone who gets to know you and gets to know your work. Now, I don't know if you consider yourself to be extroverted or introverted in the workspace. What would you say?
So I do consider myself to be extroverted,
Okay. That's
and
how you
but
present.
I'm not the type who is, loud and, the life of the party.
Mhm.
I learned throughout my career how important it is to build relationships because at the core of it, I believe that if we get to know someone, we will discover that we have something in common. And it is that connection where when you discover that you have something in common, that person will remember you when they're in an executive meeting or when a conversation comes up and your name is part of that conversation. It is important to create that connection. You don't have to be the life of the party, but you have to build meaningful connections.
Yeah. Now, you've covered a lot of things that I would consider to be a response to this next question because there's so much advice and benefit of experience that you shared here. But what career advice have you received that you've used or you pass along to others?
Um, one advice that I received, there was a time in my career, this was mid-level where I was at manager role, and I knew that I was ready for either associate director or director. And I was there for longer than I knew I wanted to be there. And I remember talking to a senior colleague. And, one of the things that she said to me is, you know, Nanda, it's interesting how life shifts. I might think that I need to be at a director level, but there's no rule book about how you move up. And it's like a jungle gym,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
Go over here, go over there, and then all of
Yes.
a sudden you get that promotion or
Mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm.
get to the level that you need to be. And when she told me that, an opportunity came up in a completely different department. And that's how I moved over to marketing because I
Mm.
was on the service side and I took it. And I wonder today if I didn't take that, events, marketing facing position where I was promoting the organization, would I be where I am today?
Mm-hmm.
Still be on the database side where really I'm not
Yeah.
seeing So
Yeah.
that advice has been so profound for my career because I was thinking that my trajectory is okay, manager, associate director
Rung
when
by
it
rung, you're thinking it's one thing after the other, right?
absolutely when it was just thinking about what do I truly want to be and taking that lateral move and finding that this is absolutely where I needed to be. And that was what propelled my career. So that was an advice that I got. The other advice that I got was, we talked about this idea of knowing when it's time to fold,
Mhm,
knowing when, there's nothing else for me to learn, when I've given what I'm supposed to give, and it's time to move on.
mhm.
And that has served me well in my career. And that has helped me to continue to build this confidence of knowing that I've done so many different things at different types of organization and building that wealth of experience. So those would be two of the advice I've given that have just been instrumental to me. The other is relationships. you
Yeah.
know it, it's building those relationships, it's making those meaningful connections
Mhm.
with folks, because you never know when your name might come up in a conversation where you get that promotion or you get that project or that opportunity comes up for me, because that certainly happened to me, and that's the reason why I'm in San Diego today.
Which is also the reason that we met. Otherwise, that may
I
not.
know.
So those
That's
are
right.
three strong, very transferable and applicable. It's not a ladder. It's you said jungle gym, which might be more representative of how it feels to people. But I've also heard the expression it's more like a lattice. It's not like there's only one way up. You can go sideways to go up. So it's not a ladder. It's a lattice. Um, know when it's time to move on in order to advance, and relationships. That is definitely sound advice encapsulated in those three things. And what is your next bold move? You've been making, as an observer, you've been making bold moves, really as long as I've known you. It's like, yes, it's going to be the C-suite thing. Okay, boom, you make it happen. I'm going to start this business, boom. And so it really does appear that when you are so moved and you have a
Yeah.
reason behind everything you do, and you're always helping, it's just there's a service component to everything that you do. So I will tell you, as a
Absolutely.
spectator, I've been seeing
Yes.
bold moves all along. So I cannot
Thank
wait to hear your answer to this, ma'am. What's your next bold move?
thank you. So, you and I have had a conversation about, I had a health scare several years ago.
Mhm.
And um, as a result of that, I have not truly felt the way I felt before that illness happened. And I discovered several years ago this superfood, and it's called CMOS. And it's interesting, and I know I'm jumping around when you get to a point in your life where okay, it's about what do I truly want to do? What is my purpose?
Mhm.
I think the first half of my career, it was all about build and get to that next level. And I aspired to do that. And I did that. But I'm at a point now where my mindset is, how can I give back? How can I? And that's what brought me to this, new business, which is I have been benefiting from this product. It has been a game changer for me in terms of my energy, my health, how I feel, working out, losing weight, all the things that we want to do.
Yeah.
So, what I've been thinking about is how amazing would it be if I can take this product that I am using and I'm getting some amazing benefits from and share it with other women who are
Mhm.
in their mid 40s, who are now realizing, like, what the heck is going on with my body? Why am I feeling like this? My knees, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I am in the process of taking this product. It's called CMOS. It grows in warm waters on rocks.
Oh,
And sea moss has a significantly high iodine component, which is great for our thyroid, which is amazing for inflammation, which helps us build muscle mass. So there's so many amazing benefits of this product. And I'm working with a coach to build a CPG brand around this product. The brand is called Just Lovity. And what it means to me is really loving and taking care of our bodies as we age or as we mature.
mature.
I want to get this product out to the masses. I'm saying it here. I envision this product being in Costco and Whole Foods and Sprouts and, all these amazing organic stores, and that other women and men can feel the benefits that I'm feeling. So, I've never been in the CPG space, and
What's CPG, by the way?
consumer packaged goods. So
Okay.
it's a consumer product. I've never worked in this space. There's so much to learn, but I am here for it, and I am excited to launch this product in January.
That's incredible. January. That's
Yeah,
exciting. So from when we're talking now, that's a couple of months away. And
absolutely.
we have touched bases on CMOS before, only because had you not brought it to my attention, I would not be aware. And so it's incredible that it's that close. You describe it as a food. So
Yeah,
as
it is.
you're putting together, okay, so this is people would be eating it one way or another in order to get the benefits.
Yes. So I'm taking the product to a powder form so that it's easier to, put in
Oh,
your cereal,
mhm.
your smoothie or your coffee or your tea, and ingest it on a daily basis.
Congratulations, Nanda. Yet another venture, and also something that, like your other ventures, are helpful to people. This time it's health benefits. That's incredible.
Absolutely.
I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the next journey. I'm looking forward to being here, to getting to try your products. Thank you so much for taking the time to have this confidence conversation. I've wanted to have it for a while, so I'm glad that we were able to do it. Thanks for the advice. Thanks for all the information and for sharing of yourself in this confidence conversation.
Absolutely. You got it. It was a pleasure being on, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
That is the plan. So that's the conclusion for our confidence conversation with Ms. Nanda Grandison today. Have a great one.